Cynthia was the type of woman who lived by her own rules. Her father, Chief Marcus, a powerful politician with ambitions to become a senator, had always been troubled by her lifestyle. Cynthia wasn't the obedient daughter that society expected her to be. She enjoyed the nightlife, partying with friends until dawn, and indulging in activities that would horrify her father. While Chief Marcus was known for his discipline and image-conscious behavior, Cynthia was his complete opposite. However, when videos of Cynthia's wild nights began circulating on social media, it quickly became a scandal. Her carefree lifestyle was now not just a family problem but a public issue that threatened Chief Marcus' political campaign. Reporters feasted on the story, and rival politicians used it against him. The once controlled image of his family was shattered, and Chief Marcus knew he needed to do something drastic to salvage his reputation and campaign. Faced with the scandal's impact on his political career, Chief Marcus devised a bold strategy to change public perception. He knew he couldn't simply ask Cynthia to stop, that had never worked before. So, he turned to Bernard, a trustworthy and mature young man who had worked in one of his business companies for years. Bernard had the reputation of being responsible, dependable, and above all, discreet. Chief Marcus proposed a daring plan to him. Bernard would pose as Cynthia's husband, making it seem like she had settled down into a respectable life. Bernard, although taken aback by the unusual request, saw the potential benefits, especially with the generous payment Chief Marcus promised. He hesitated at first, knowing that this arrangement could complicate his life, but the financial reward and the idea of helping out his powerful boss eventually persuaded him. The next day, the plan was set in motion. When Bernard arrived at Chief Marcus' mansion for the formal introduction to Cynthia, he was greeted with a scene of tension. Cynthia, dressed casually but with a defiant air, sat with her arms crossed, glaring at her father. She had already been informed about the plan and was furious. She argued with her father, pleading with him to abandon the idea. Cynthia couldn't understand why her father would drag someone else into her life just to fix his political image. Chief Marcus, however, was unwavering. He made it clear that Cynthia had caused too much damage, and this was the only way to control the narrative. Cynthia's protests were in vain. Her father's stern gaze and authoritative tone silenced her eventually. She realized that no matter how hard she fought, her father's determination to win the Senate seat overpowered her resistance. Reluctantly, she agreed, though the resentment in her eyes was clear. Despite her reluctance, Cynthia had no choice but to comply with her father's plan. Chief Marcus provided them with one of his most luxurious houses, fully furnished and located in an upscale neighborhood, for the facade they were about to create. Cynthia and Bernard moved in together and began the charade of being a happily married couple. They attended charity events, fashion galas, and political dinners, all the while pretending to be deeply in love. Cameras would capture their forced smiles, and Bernard would wrap an arm around Cynthia's waist, playing the role of the doting husband. They would post pictures on social media, showing off their supposed blissful life together. But behind the scenes, the reality was far from perfect. Their relationship was tense, filled with constant bickering. Bernard found Cynthia's entitled attitude frustrating, while Cynthia resented Bernard for going along with her father's plan. Their fake marriage felt like a prison to both of them. The tension between Cynthia and Bernard reached a boiling point one evening when Bernard suggested she cook dinner. Cynthia, already annoyed by their charade, shot back that she wasn't his legal wife or his maid. Their fights seemed to revolve around the simplest of things, like who should wash the dishes or tidy up the house. Cynthia often left the house in a huff, spending days with her friends to escape the suffocating atmosphere. Bernard, left behind, would stew in frustration, wondering how long they could keep up this act. The pressure of pretending to be a couple in public while despising each other in private was taking its toll. Every day felt like a battle, with both of them refusing to back down. The charade might have been successful in repairing Chief Marcus' image, but it was slowly breaking down Cynthia and Bernard's spirits, making them question how long they could endure this fake relationship. Bernard, initially driven by the promise of payment, had been indifferent to Cynthia's emotions. His only goal was to fulfill his role and get through the ordeal. However, as time passed and their interactions became more frequent, Bernard began to notice the toll their constant fighting was taking on both of them. He started to feel guilty for the way he had treated her, realizing that his harsh words and lack of compassion had made the situation even more unbearable for them both. One evening, after yet another heated argument, Bernard decided to change his approach. He found Cynthia sitting quietly in the living room, her expression tired and frustrated. Approaching her, he took a deep breath and said, "I'm sorry for the way I've been treating you. I know this isn't easy for you either, and I've been too harsh." His unexpected apology broke the tension, surprising both of them. Cynthia was caught off guard by Bernard's apology. Up until that point, she had viewed him as just another person trying to control her life, but his sincere words made her pause. She hadn't expected him to show any kindness or acknowledge how difficult this situation was for her. She could see the genuine remorse in his eyes, and it softened her defenses. For the first time, she felt a sense of understanding between them. She accepted his apology with a nod, her usual snarky response replaced with quiet appreciation. From that moment, something shifted between them. The constant quarreling began to fade, and instead of throwing insults, they started talking, really talking. Bernard began to see Cynthia as more than just a spoiled party girl, and Cynthia saw that Bernard wasn't just the cold businessman she had assumed. Slowly, they began to bond, discovering new layers in each other. As their relationship began to evolve, Cynthia took a surprising step that left Bernard speechless. One evening, instead of their usual arguments about chores, Cynthia offered to cook dinner. Bernard, used to her defiant nature, was taken aback but agreed, bracing himself for a culinary disaster. However, when she called him to the table, he was stunned by what he saw, a beautifully prepared meal. He sat down cautiously, expecting the worst, but when he took his first bite, he was amazed by how delicious it was. Cynthia noticed his shocked expression and couldn't help but chuckle. "Don't look so surprised," she teased. "I may not be a domestic goddess, but I can follow a recipe." Bernard laughed with her, feeling a warmth between them that had never been there before. It was a turning point, one that showed him just how much Cynthia was capable of when she let her guard down. As weeks turned into months, their relationship grew stronger. The initial tension and resentment that had defined their time together gradually gave way to a deeper connection. They found themselves spending more time together, not because they had to, but because they enjoyed each other's company. Their conversations became lighter, filled with laughter and shared stories. Bernard started to see past Cynthia's wild exterior and recognized her intelligence, kindness, and vulnerability. She wasn't just the reckless daughter of a politician, she was a woman with dreams, fears, and a heart that had been hidden beneath her rebellious facade. Cynthia, in turn, saw that Bernard wasn't just a serious, money-focused businessman. He could be caring, gentle, and even funny when he let his guard down. The pretense that had brought them together began to feel real, and they both found themselves longing for moments together. The senatorial election finally arrived, and Chief Marcus emerged victorious, securing his seat in the Senate. With his political career on track, the charade between Cynthia and Bernard no longer needed to continue. They had fulfilled their roles, and it was time to part ways. The day they moved out of the luxurious house, there was an awkward silence between them. Both Cynthia and Bernard realized that they had grown attached to one another, but neither of them voiced it. As they packed their belongings, they shared a final glance, both of them feeling the weight of what they were leaving behind. When they finally went their separate ways, something felt incomplete. The fake relationship had become more real than either of them had anticipated. The worst part was that, in their rush to leave, they hadn't exchanged contact information. Now, they were left with only memories of their time together, both wondering what could have been. As time went by, life gradually returned to its normal pace. Cynthia slipped back into her usual routine of parties and social events, but Bernard lingered in her thoughts more often than she expected. She found herself reminiscing about their time together and the unexpected moments of genuine connection they had shared. Bernard, on the other hand, was also caught off guard by how frequently he thought about Cynthia. He had tried to focus on his work and move on, but memories of their conversations and laughter kept resurfacing. Then, one ordinary afternoon, chance played its hand. Cynthia and Bernard happened to run into each other at a cozy restaurant they both frequented. Their surprise and joy at the unexpected reunion were palpable. As they exchanged smiles and greetings, both felt a familiar warmth that made them realize how much they had missed each other. Seizing the moment, Bernard asked for Cynthia's contact information, hoping to continue their newfound connection. Cynthia, pleasantly surprised by his genuine interest, agreed and gave him her number. From that point on, their interactions took on a different tone. No longer bound by the constraints of their previous charade, they began to reconnect as true friends. Their conversations were no longer filled with pretense but were instead marked by honesty and mutual respect. As they spent more time together outside the spotlight, their friendship grew deeper, evolving into something more meaningful. Bernard and Cynthia discovered that their initial bond had laid the groundwork for a real relationship. The facade that had initially brought them together was now replaced by genuine feelings. They realized that sometimes, love finds its way into our lives through the most unexpected and unconventional circumstances. Their story, once driven by a need to maintain appearances, had transformed into a true, heartfelt connection.